Ericksson Odhiambo is the Secretary General of the Third Way Alliance political party. This is a party that was behind the Punguza Mizigo Constitution Amendment Initiative, the popular initiative to Punguza Mizigo by a constitutional amendment. Ericksson, welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. So you've already started, you're saying, so there's a new crop of young political leaders who are emerging, and you're being reminded that you've got to go into politics with servant leadership as the way to go and not to make money.
Yes.
And you're buying into that?
Yes, I'm buying into that because I have lived in this country. I vied in the last election. And
where, for what seat?
I vied for MCA Harambee Ward. And the murkiness that I talk about in politics, I saw it firsthand. But it is not the scenario that you want to go into the future if you want to make this country a prosperous country. So if I can maybe just do a reference to the bill that we had drafted in reference to what we are talking about. So one of the proposals that we had was to strengthen devolution. And by strengthening devolution, we said that out of the 1,450 wards in the country, we should start by measuring development at that level. So we have been sending 416 people into parliament to spend a total of 31.8 billion every year, but we don't see the value the value of both legislation, representation, and oversight. In fact, we had...
This is in the National Assembly?
The National Assembly. So we have 416 individuals, both elected and nominated. But sorry to say this, from what we view on television and following people who follow keenly, it has become some kind of a marketplace and a business place where some deals are made in the toilet and no actual value for the representation that we send them to do there and oversight is being seen. That's why we're proposing to cut the number of MPs from 416 to 147. On that note, be that as it may, we also roped it in with the strengthening Senate to have veto powers. Because if you remember, the VAT Act of 2013 was passed out of political expediency without considering the economic situation of Kenyans, the ordinary Kenyans out here. And Senate had no veto powers to say no because that is the structure that we have right now. And the revenue sharing bill number 7 of 2018, which as per the constitution was supposed to be passed on updated audited accounts, not the previous ones, but still political expediency came in and Senate could not do anything. So I think Parliament needs to be checked, one of our proposals, for it to be very efficient. And also, having 416 members who some never talk in the Hansard, it is there, never talk for 5 years, I think it's a very big loss for the people of Kenya.
So you want to increase that? Well, you want to say let's focus our attention to the county assemblies.
Yes.
1,450 elected MCAs, almost a similar number nominated. So you have over 2,000 nominated MCAs. Have we felt the value of over 2,000 members of county assemblies across the country?
Yes. So
just if you ask us if you've felt the value of representation and legislation,
yes.
Have we felt the value of county assemblies?
I think that question is both a yes and a no, because also the type and character of a leader that the citizens elect as per Chapter 6 of the Constitution is an issue there. But when it comes to devolution in its core and it's how it was built to work as brick and mortar, we don't have enough money going down to the counties, and that's why also one of our proposals was that the Constitution is not hell-bent on saying only 15%. It's not capped on 15% only. The Constitution says that at least 15%. So we can even go up to 50% if we want to send this money to the counties for it to be functional. So, and then it also brings in the issue, what is national? Most of the money remains to the national. What is national? I think national is these Kenyans in all these wards in all these counties and wards, having clean water, education, security, and also food security. That is, having as per Chapter 6 of the Constitution, they say that all services should be devolved to all the counties. So it should be felt by the normal mwananchi, not a few, maybe these counties like Nairobi, which is a capital city. So I think if we gave devolution a chance and made it work by following the Constitution and making a few amendments here and there, I think we'd see the face of Kenya. But right now we're not seeing it because the focus is on, I'm sorry to say this, but the focus is on elected leaders, which should not be. But right now, 1.4 million people are facing drought.
Ericksson, I hear you have gone straight up into talking about the Punguza Mizigo initiative, which flopped the county assemblies, despite the fact that you are saying it was seeking to entrench devolution and support the county assemblies to be better. But they rejected it at the county assemblies. Is the Third Way Alliance party reviving the push to amend the constitution?
So, with the party leader and the team behind us, we have had a lot of consultations with stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? Stakeholders are Kenyans, both elected and non-elected, and they still feel that what we had proposed was going to bring a lot of gain to the common person. So yes, we are in the process of kickstarting Punguza Mizigo Kenya back into the play.
Okay. Again?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think Kenyans are ready for this?
I would say Kenyans they were ready even for it when we did it previously, because remember, Kenyans did not reject the bill. Kenyans, as per Article 255, 256 and 257, we went to the people of Kenya and they gave us 1.4 million signatures. 1.2 were verified. Then the bill, as per the Constitution, the bill was presented to the county assembly. But unfortunately, as we were going around, people took party positions instead of looking at debating the merits and the demerits of the bill. If you look at how the bill was rejected, it was on a technicality, and sorry to say this, that is also one of the things why we should look at the kind of leaders we're electing. Because we went to one county assembly, and we walked into the county assembly, and a person rose to the floor and said, so I have a bill here, and calls a name of the colleague to come and second the bill. And the guy wakes up and says, I don't second that bill. And then that's how it was never debated in most of the county assemblies. Yes. So it is very, very sad that the leaders we have, and maybe we are electing, sometimes take positions not based on the people who actually elected them to the seat, but to their party positions. Like even my previous analyst here was here, Omingo Magara, talked about it. I was listening, coming. It's sad, but I think for us to change this, we need to take the bull by the horns and just face the people of the Kenya.
Okay. So what will be the difference this time?
So this time, I think last time what we lacked was what actually people said we lacked, and we took it as feedback. We have to take feedback. Was they said we didn't work with elected leaders. So we're trying to talk sense.
What did they mean?
So we didn't gang up with other political parties.
Did you lobby?
Yes, we lobbied. Actually, we used to have elected leaders, both members of parliament and members of county assembly, in our offices every morning, but they didn't want to be seen by their political parties as being behind Punguza Mizigo.
But that is not you lobbying, that is them lobbying.
No, we actually lobbied. We actually lobbied in so many different ways. We actually brought them on board. And then CT, in this country, we are used to a circus for politics. I'd really love politicians to sit on the table and talk about real issues that are affecting Kenyans. Okay, instead of taking party positions because of political expediency, and at the end of the day, like, they took party positions. Maybe most of them took party positions because of the BBI. Rest in peace. So, but then,
But Ericksson,
Yeah.
you know, we're talking about what we call the political space, huh?
yes,
And about Kenya, and about politicians and the way they go about their business. But you are now beginning to sound as though this is something new. We know how politicians think. We know how they go about their business. So when I ask if you lobbied, I am simply asking the question, did you take into account how our politicians are going to respond to this? Or did you take what they told you when they came to your offices at face value?
so we actually took into account everything that they brought on board. But also, you know, I think lobbying is a wide. It's a very. You've really taken it. Are you actually talking about us lobbying, like talking to them, or how they operate?
It isn't just talking to them. The idea behind lobbying is so that you get someone to buy into your idea and that they support it. And the way you understand the success of your lobbying is if they support the idea. Now, I say this because the one currency that politicians understand is one called self-interest. They understand it very, very well.
Yes.
So how were you lobbying if their self-interest wasn't catered for? Because the things that were proposed by the Punguza Mizigo initiative made a lot of sense in so many ways. But beyond sense, the lobbying would be, how would the politicians have listened to what you are saying and seen their interests served in it?
So, like, so this is what happened. So I'll tell you what happened on the ground. So, for instance, we have lobbied, we have talked to a county assembly today, and we are going to visit the county assembly tomorrow, and we are sure that it's being passed. Some of the county assemblies took a hard stand and said this is about, they were patriotic. This is about Kenya. So, like Uasin Gishu, they passed the bill, they said no. But now, there was an underhand in this. And these are not just allegations I'm making. The outsiders actually told us there's money put on the table for us to reject this bill. And then there was the car grant money that they were given for them to reject Punguza Mizigo Kenya. So their interest was served by...
car grant came later. It was...
we were in the process of getting the 24 counties majority. Yes.
Car grant came around the time of the passing of the BBI. There's a hope for the BBI.
BBI and Punguza Mizigo were tied like this. So we went...
when you say tied in a race, not tied together.
Yes, tied in a race.
Okay.
Tied in a race. Yeah, because by the time us, we were getting closer to going through all the county assemblies. BBI had kicked in and were having meetings in these places, hotels and everything.
Okay.
And thus we were going to the people directly. So most of the county assemblies, they actually called us and they called the party leader and told him, boss, tumewekewa basha kwa meza. We were supporting you in the morning, but now we are being whipped.
Unless you have a counter offer.
Yes, unless you have a counter offer. As we are being whipped to reject this thing.
And that's what City was asking. Did you lobby?
So, I mean, so, you know...
equals to...
Now,
The other party had lobbied.
but, you know, the lobbying is very insincere because you...
This is politics we're speaking
Exactly,
of.
exactly. But if City, you see, this is a very important show because it's a show where a lot of intellect is oozed out of here.
Are you now lobbying?
No. I'm just saying because we are talking to we are talking to people who are listening. You know, Kenyans, my friends, my relatives, most Kenyans don't like reading bulky documents, but I can listen to people talk. So when we come to this show, we need to really educate Kenyans. What is the purpose of you? What is your civic duty in politics? You see, so civic duty in politics is not only going to vote in the morning and going to watch TV in the evening. You need to get involved instead of complaining on the fence. Okay? So when it comes to the Constitution of Kenya, 2010, I think even normal Kenyans need to have a feel of it. I am not a trained lawyer, but I think I know a little bit of the Constitution because I need to know the document that governs me. Does it favor me? Are there areas that we can change for us to be better?
You know, the reason why when we had a referendum on this matter of the Constitution, it sailed through, and that is why we have we have a Constitution, is because it was sold, and whatever was being sold was bought, that this was going to change lives. It was going to be better than what people had. And in many ways, if you look at the actualization of it, one sees benefits, one sees the so-called political space open. There are many things that are happening that wouldn't have happened without the Constitution. And I'm talking about the many, many positive things. Okay? I am simply being realistic when I ask. Because if you know people expect you to give them money, what can you offer them that is better than money?
So, City, let me also just take you back on the Constitution, the promulgation 10 years ago, right now. The Constitution, as per what I have experienced in this country, has not been fully implemented. It's a piece of paper.
No, it hasn't.
It's a piece of paper, but you need to breathe life into it. So let's go to the Constitution now, and let's go to a whole in this entire world that we live in. It is only Kenya that has a whole chapter dedicated to the type, character of a leader, of how a leader should conduct themselves.
And do you understand the thinking behind it and why the crafters of that Constitution focused on this thing?
Yes, because of the political, toxic political environment we are in.
What our lived experience with politicians and politics had been such that it was understood we need to put this in the Constitution. There's no talking about it, isn't it?
Yes.
Precisely.
But then, sorry, but the administrations that have been there since the promulgation of the Constitution have made it become, some of the sections of the Constitution are like flower girls in the Constitution, because they are there cosmetic. They're there very cosmetic, but they're not implemented. So then, that's why we're saying, why don't we even strengthen some areas of our governance, like the Auditor General's office. We had proposed that we have a forensic department where if the Auditor General today gives a report and says money was lost in this county X, the DPP immediately moves in using the forensic report as evidence to start prosecuting, and the DCI starts investigation.
Why can't the Auditor General do that now?
Because they don't have a forensic
why can't
department.
they set up a forensic department?
So it needs
Are they barred by law from setting up a forensic
it needs to be entrenched in the Constitution.
No.
Because
Are they barred? Is there any part in the Office of Auditor General Act or the PFM Act
so the thing is
or
this,
the Constitution that says that the Auditor General cannot have a forensic audit?
So they are not bad, but you know how the status quo has been operating. If you don't have anything enforced by the law, then it will somehow.
It's an independent office, boss. The Office of the Auditor General is a constitutional independent office.
So Eric, let me pose a question to you.
And they have a mandate to conduct audits.
So let me pose a question.
Now, if they decide to do forensic audits, would they be going against their mandate? No, they wouldn't.
So they've done.
Why can't they do it?
So they've done them, and they've put them as public documents. But has the DPP taken it up to start investigations?
You see, that's another constitutional office and an independent office.
That's why we wanted to tie it up together, so that the forensic office is working together with the DCI and the DPP. So immediately this report is put out by the Auditor General, the person steps down from the public office and investigations start. So that was the essence of it all.
So why not just have
to
it
be
in
entrenched in law? So that's why we were proposing.
Must it be in the Constitution? Why can't it just be in the various pieces of legislation? The piece of legislation that establishes the Office of the Auditor General, the piece of legislation that establishes the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions.
As per our previous engagements, there was no political goodwill to bring that into play, because it was not favoring them at all.
Let's take a break. Ericksson Odhiambo is the Secretary General of the Third Way Alliance Party. Third Way Alliance are the people who are behind the push to amend the Constitution through the Punguza Mizigo initiative. Since 2010, there have been three, let's call them serious attempts. There have been many attempts at amending the Constitution. Some are just bar talk, others are just threats. Three have actually gone to seeking people's signatures.
Yeah.
One of them was around just 4 years into the constitution, started by a Chord coalition then. It flopped because they presented, according to the IEBC, signatures of donkeys.
Without ears.
Without
There
ears.
you go. Oh, yes.
The second attempt was by the Third Way Alliance, the Punguza Mizigo. The third attempt was again called reimagined into BBI. It went all the way to the National Assembly. They have not performed well. Now, Third Way Alliance says they'd like to revisit this story. Are you ready for another conversation about amending the Constitution again?
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Third Way Alliance says they want to launch a move to come to you and seek your support in a popular initiative to amend the Constitution. The question to you is, are you ready for another conversation about amending the Constitution at this time? Are you ready for another conversation about amending the Constitution at this time? Our guest is the Secretary General of the Third Way Alliance, Ericksson Odhiambo. He's here with us in the studio. They had the Punguza Mizigo initiative, which passed the signature stage, went to the county assemblies, and it flopped at the county assemblies. Now they want to revive it again. Ericksson, you're saying very many things about your experience that time. One, you got some sufficient support from members of the public, where you got 1,200 verified signatures. Right?
1.2 million.
1.2 million verified signatures.
Yes.
But it went to the county assemblies. The MCAs, like you say, many of them moved with the politics of the day and did not support your move. Do you think if the members of parliament felt that there was sufficient support of your initiative from the people that they represented, they would have taken the move that they took?
So,
What do you think was lacking? Was it lack of sufficient support from the citizens or support from the political leaders?
it was all political, and it's just purely political bad manners. Because if 1.2, you only 416 individuals who have been elected by more than 19 million in the last election. So, who are the supremo? Even as Article 1 of the Constitution says, the Kenyan people are the final, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it is pure political bad manners. But also, we also, right now, we're going to find mechanisms of urging the people actually to bring their leaders to account. Because if we introduce such a bill and the normal mwananchi, let me just juxtapose something. The cost of running parliament right now is 36.8 billion. We are 400% overrepresented for a population of around 50 million. Juxtaposed to other democracies that are way ahead of Kenya in terms of development, because we're a developing world. You go to India, for a population of 1.3 billion people, they have 800 representatives only. That means one representative represents 1.6 million people. Go to the superpower of the world, the United States of America. For a population of 350 million people, they have only 535 representatives. China, which lends us money, I saw we're talking about in the dailies about the contracts, whether they were the real contracts or not, lends us Kenya money, has, for a population of 1.2 billion people, they have only 1,200 elected officials. Mm-hmm. So, ask yourself, even if you go to Kenyans, go to Kenyans on the ground and ask them, with a country that is facing all these problems that can get money from the wage bill is ballooning. If this money can be saved, we were proposing to cut down the budget from 36.8 billion to 5 billion a year only for running government.
By reducing the number of MPs?
Reducing the number of MPs, even capping their salaries and allowances. Then this money can go and serve Kenyans who actually need it. Because what is the relevance of one person? I'm not saying it's not their right. It's entrenched in the Constitution. But now let's go to the logic. So you have a 20 million house grant. You are pushing for 250,000 also rent. Apart from that, they were pushing for that. You have you have a car running allowance. You have a salary. You still have staff. You're one person. But the people you're representing, okay, the people you're representing are wallowing in poverty and hunger.
You see now those things that you're doing. What you're doing now is civic education. How about Third Way Alliance goes around the country for the next 5 years actually conducting civic education and doing what you've just done, juxtaposing and giving practical examples and saying this is what it's costing you. So that then by the time you come and say, this is a solution to it, this is how we can come up with a solution, people already have an idea. Sounds like you're starting by saying, let's amend the constitution, and then coming to use that to justify why you need to amend the constitution.
So, Latif, remember something.
And mind you, the people who are saying, let's amend the constitution, in those 3 attempts, Raila is responsible for 2, Ekuru Aukot is responsible for 1. Both of them are at the core of the 2010 constitution. So the people who gave us this constitution are coming to tell us, let's amend the constitution because it's not working.
So, first of all, they didn't give you the constitution. They were framers. They were just taking ideas around the country. And they had, writing of a constitution. I'm not a constitution builder. My party leader is. I've learned some stuff from him. So writing a constitution is actually taking ideas. Some even are a compromise. But because they represent maybe a minority in the country, you need to include them in the constitution. Moving to what you're saying, if you have been following Third Way keenly since the 2017 election, not even now, we have been consistent in civic education. There's a time we used to give press statements every week on the current state of the economy, the current state of politics in the country. And we were one of the... before that, I'd seen that when I was in school, we were the only party who came up and appointed a shadow cabinet. But they were locked out of even accessing documents that could bring these people into account, the cabinet secretaries and everybody. So we have been doing this civic education continuously in different platforms.
Has it been enough?
Even if it hasn't been enough, then I think we can revamp it. Okay. But we have been doing it.
Do you have a feel? Because also, they say once you're getting into something, there's the feeling or the understanding that you have. Do you think that the Kenyan public is adequately or sufficiently versed, has an understanding, innate or otherwise, about these things that you speak of? That the wage bill in Kenya is unbelievably high, that the representation is really, really legislatively heavy. Do you think that the majority of Kenyans get it? Because truth be told, if they do not get it, all these things that you speak of then would be very difficult to achieve.
That's a very important question. And I'll just break it down in a very, very layman's language. If the Kenyan population understand hunger, if the Kenyan population understand the pain of the broken down health system, if the Kenyan population understand the pain of not having a functional security apparatus, like our brothers and sisters who are dying in the Northern Corridor, if they understand that, then everything is simplified by Third Way Alliance. That's the way we have broke it down. We are going to the basics. We are not even asking for more than that. I think the only jargon in the bill is things constitutional, but we've also broken it down. We had even done it in a Swahili version so that Kenyans can go through it. And something else I wanted to say about the same thing that we are speaking about. So we had proposed in the bill that any person who's mentioned in other democracies like the UK, there's a very silent principle in their constitution called resignation. If you're adversely mentioned to have been involved in anything corruption, you resign. If you have a very good moral standing ground, you resign. Here it's not happening. So we had proposed, you step down, let the investigating agencies get in, do their job within 30 days, close this thing. If you are found to be culpable, okay, no presidential pardon, you go inside.
But Ericksson, surely.
I just want to prove my point, CT. One second.
Go ahead.
So this is one of the points that was really fought by the political elite. Then it tells you that people are doing things that they're not supposed to be doing in public offices. Let's go back to we keep juxtaposing Kenya to the Asian tigers and economies that we were at par with in the 60s, like Singapore, Malaysia. But we can't get there. Lee Kuan Yew, who was the PM for Singapore, you know the history, you know what he did. Now the country, even a beggar is a millionaire. So there's no beggar in that country. But if we can't take the bull by the horns, us as the people, and we keep giving a few individuals the space to plunder this country, then woe unto our generations and the generations that come after us.
You know, what you say makes sense. What you say is pleasant to the ears, but what you say is ineffective because the how-to isn't there. You see, you are expecting a situation where, because certain words are uttered, people have been told a few things, you put it in the constitution that it will happen. In Kenya, with the political leadership, resign. Our whole structure. Should more effort not be put into getting people to understand how they can pressurize leaders to actually resign?
And to understand what lobbying really means.
So that something happens, you know your people are going to be on your case. You know there will be no breathing space.
Yes.
But here the space is the leaders should have a prick of their conscience so that morally what?
No, so I understand what
it's the people.
It's the people.
If the people have no issue with it,
then
why do you have an issue with it?
Yes.
Hold on, let's go to the phone line. Zachary is on the line. Zachary, good morning.
Good morning, people.
How are you?
I'm fine. I decided to become like the Pope, giving my view on, after a very long time.
Doing homilies.
That now shall guide you. That shall guide the thinking of the other.
Where are you?
I'm in Gatoto South still.
Okay.
Let me give my home there.
Okay.
The guy is saying very good, yeah? But now the approach is, I think it is the one that brings the problems because he talks to the honchos in Nairobi, the guys who drive the top of the Range Rovers and the like, yeah? Those guys, if they are offended by a certain point, they are going to give those guys money, yeah? And they are going to beat down a very, 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 very noble idea that they are always come up with. Yeah? Watch those guys that they were around. They have questioned very well and come and ask us here on the ground. You work so hard here.
Zachary.
You are overrepresented. CG from the MCA all the way up to now the governor. But you work hard, yet you look at your situation,
Zachary.
It's like you are becoming more polarized.
Zachary, you use the other phone.
So they actually
Zachary?
start believing us what you are.
Call us with the other phone. You know he has like 17 phones. So call from the other phone. This one is not working. This one is not good at all. It's bad line. But you were about to respond to what he had said earlier.
Or to what City had said. Yeah. So, I mean, then that responsibility then befalls, apart from the 50 million Kenyans who live in this country, the 20 million plus who are actually eligible voters to actually now, come to the, let me tell you something.
You have to convince the 20 million. I think that's a point that was being made. Because the 20 million who are voters are the ones who look they're the ones who look at the candidates.
The 20 million, 8 million
and they
didn't
select.
vote.
Exactly.
So that's the problem.
8 million don't select.
Yes.
15 million participate.
Yeah.
And the 15 million, how are they vetting the candidates? Those are the same ones that you'd like to participate in this referendum that you want to push. So how about you start by preaching to them and getting them on board?
I think
I take you back to the point of the last time you attempted it, you failed.
No.
The people through their representatives rejected
Be fair to third
your
way.
bill.
Be fair to third way. We did fail.
Actually, it isn't a question of being fair or not. We are just talking about the outcome. Okay.
So it was not a failure.
Yes.
See, a failure.
The people rejected your bill
The people didn't reject,
through the representatives,
but the representatives did not equal.
legally constituted representatives of the people
Said no.
rejected your bill.
Yes.
So the last time
On
you
what
tried,
grounds? See, when I
Whatever
started, I said,
ground.
no, if they had debated the merits and the demerits of the bill, we would have said it's a failure. Get me very right. I mean, even KCSE graduates in this country can actually really go into documents and analyze. These are elected officials who decided to be politically correct by rejecting the bill on technicality.
Ericksson, do you see what you're doing?
Yes.
You're looking for excuses.
No, it's not an excuse. I can't say it's a
Look,
failure because we worked for this
look.
document, yeah?
We had your party leader here. If you hear what we've said about what you people were proposing, it's positive, it's not negative.
Yeah.
There's a certain truth acceptance and a certain quotient, certain level that is very crucial to any political process. Now, you didn't succeed. So what does that equal to? You wanted them to pass it, they didn't. What does that tell you?
But the
You
grounds...
See, forget the reasons and the grounds. Those are the excuses I'm talking about. I am simply saying this. When you know you have a good product and it isn't being accepted, go back to the books and say, fine, that's what we did the last time. How do we now do it so that this time around? That's why I asked you the question, what do you give these money-loving politicians that is worth more than the money that they want? Because they will want money. And that route, if you follow, you will have achieved nothing.
Before you respond, let's hear from Simon. Simon, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
I wanted to comment on one thing. There's an area he mentioned which I work on, which is about the reports that come from the Auditor General's office.
Yeah.
That go to public accounts on what money has been embezzled, lost, or stuff like that.
Yep.
For the government of Kenya to really want to sort that, does not require the bill or law changed. It only requires them to empower the records department and the process people in the ministries to do something called an audit trail. Any money lost in government requires no OAG right now as we speak. There was a case of Tokyo. I am aware they sent people to go follow the money trail because I'm in records management. And all it requires, if you ever lose money, is take the records, follow the trail of the records, you know where that money got lost, and ODP. So I thought I should correct that part for my brother there. So that he knows we don't need to have very many institutions set up for things that can actually be done by the institutions already there. Because by the time Madam OAG is saying we have lost 300 million, some documents are missing.
Yep.
So what we require to ask ourselves is, instead of that forensic department, how powerful can we make our records management department so that they are able to be accountable? That's the part I thought, let me correct because I'm in that area, so that even as they might in future do Punguza Mizigo, we don't require a forensic unit in Kenya. We require empowered records managers such that today, if there is a fraud in an institution, you ask for the documentation, who signed, who missed what, prosecute those ones. And God bless you guys.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
So, first I'll respond to Simon.
Yes.
So, Simon is very correct. He's very correct. But he's talking as a civil servant. Empowering the records management, we went through that. We went through that. But there was no goodwill from the ministries that have this records management. The documents, one of the feedback we got from very, very senior procurement official in Treasury told us that these documents, they normally get an invisible drawer or cabinet, and you cannot trust them. So that's why, if you understand me, these are the records.
What would the Constitution do?
So, forensic audit, even if 1 or 2 documents are missing, the trail will not hit a dead end. They will find a disparity in whichever money that was lost. So I agree, we can relook the record, strengthening that, but that's why we found a cure in having a forensic audit, because auditors don't, they as much as they look at the records, but they also have their logical way of working to find out money was lost, documents are missing, but you cannot account for this money. Where is it?
Sounds the same thing to me. Anyway, to what City was saying earlier.
So I think as we go back to revamping the document and speaking to the people, I think we'll find a pathway to try and bring some sense to the elected officials, because as far as I see this and I'm concerned, I think that the only the only hurdle that we have, the people of Kenya are very optimistic. But yes, City, we will see how to find a way to bring the politicians on board so that the process doesn't flop like last time.
Politicians are often a difficult nut to crack. The Mwananchi, again, if they see the benefit in the empowerment we are speaking of, word often used, perhaps misused, perhaps a tired word now, in the absence of being held to account, political leaders will never do the right thing. Not, may not, will never. I'm underlining it in red and then circle it in green. Because unless it is something they see as being in their interest, not the public good.
Yes.
When people know that the decision being made is not in their interest and being made, not just, it's in the constitution, not just being aware, but acknowledging and knowing that there's a step they can take. That is the one guarantee we have. People are wonderful before they get elected. They even keep their word. They get elected, they get to parliament, God alone knows what happens to them. Because they become the complete opposite of what they said they were going to do, we hoped they would be. So, to help them.
But City, on that point, I think also as normal Kenyans, we have slept on our job. You know why? Because there's a section of recalling an MP or an MCA. I know it's a process, but if Kenyans who are the ones feeling the pain, they are the ones who know the pain points, actually queued. I queued, I voted for myself also. I didn't get enough votes. So if I queued and voted for someone else and they're not responsible enough to bring development, oversight, legislate on behalf of the people that they're representing, then it's upon us. The way we woke up in the morning,
To hold them accountable.
to go vote, to recall them.
Yeah.
So I think also Kenyans, as part of civic education, also Kenyans need to know what is entrenched in the law to favor them against and to also cover them against all these
The
politicians.
duties and responsibilities.
Yeah.
Ericksson, thank you very much for joining us today. We'll be calling you again and again as you progress now with this fresh speed of Punguza Mizigo, Kenya.